So Damian Lillard is now a Milwaukee Buck. Joining me here to talk about it, Brandon Sneide of WTMJ. Brandon, first reaction to the trade. What were you thinking, man?
I had to double check so many different Twitter accounts to make sure that this was accurate. Well, we had inklings that they were included in the trade talks, but like that's like every team, right? Like you got to dip your toes into the water and see exactly who you could get. But like for me as a Bucks fan, I never thought that this team, this organization, a team that I rooted for my whole entire life would be interested or would be acquiring a superstar talent like Damian Lillard. Now, keep in mind, Giannis obviously is the superstar here in Milwaukee, but he was homegrown. We drafted him, blossomed him into the star that he's in now. But if you're talking about a top 75 player in Damian Lillard, arguably top 10 player right now in the league, you can make the argument top 7. I just couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. And Jrue Holiday was a big part of what the 2021 team achieved, right? Winning that championship without Jrue Holiday, Game 5 in Phoenix, the steal off of Devin Booker, the alley-oop to Giannis. We refer to it as the valley-oop. Wouldn't have been possible without Jrue Holiday. That championship, a lot of that championship credit goes to Jrue Holiday. But when you have an opportunity to acquire a guy like Damian Lillard, you got to do it, man. You got to do it. And it's something that Milwaukee's been missing. We know what we have in Giannis. Chris Middleton hasn't been healthy, to say the least. I was absolutely shocked. I was glued to my phone for like the next 24 hours. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it actually happened.
Yeah, the Bucks do join a short list of teams that do have 2 top 75 NBA players on their active roster. So it's exciting company to be in, and certainly that increases the expectations in Milwaukee this season. What do you think is going to be the most obvious thing once you see Damian on the court? What is going to be the most obvious change from last year to this year?
Half court offense. That's been the Achilles heel, really, of this Milwaukee Bucks team, right? And Chris Middleton's not a shot creator. He can make his shots. He's not going to create his own shot. Damian Lillard can do that. If the Bucks aren't in a transition period on the court, where Giannis is full steam ahead and he's going to the rim and creating those buckets and those and one opportunities and free throw opportunities, the offense kind of stalled. It's stalled. And that's kind of what the knock on Jrue Holiday was. As great as Jrue Holiday was as a defender, as a perimeter defender, half-court offense with him at the helm kind of took a little bit of a hit. So for me, the immediate impact is going to be half-court offense. And we saw it against Miami in the playoffs this past year in 2022. It was against Boston. We just couldn't get anything going in the half-court offense. When you have the opportunity to add a player like Damian Lillard, who I think, in my opinion, is if you're going, and this is going to sound like a biased opinion, that's okay, because I am a Bucks fan. When you pair 2 superstars together and you think of LeBron and Anthony Davis, yeah, they kind of go together somewhat. You think maybe Brown and Tatum in Boston, 2 guys that like to shoot the ball a lot. Damian Lillard and Giannis, best match of superstars I think the NBA has right now. I think when you have a guy who Giannis doesn't require the ball to be in his hands a ton, right? He's a high percentage shooter as far as, at the rim, has his takes his threes occasionally and is not a great free throw shooter. But the pick and roll opportunities that Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo are going to present for teams, you're not going to be able to guard it. You're just not going to be able to stop it because Damian Lillard's also never played with a spacer like Giannis. Right? Like Damian Lillard in Portland did everything. I think he scored 71 points just 6 months ago. And he didn't necessarily have a whole lot of help. So now you're adding shooters and shot creators and floor spacers around a guy who's arguably a top 10 player. We mentioned it earlier at the beginning of the show already. It's going to pay dividend. The fitting is perfect, I think, for Damian Lillard in Milwaukee and a half-court offense. To answer your question, wrap it full circle, the half-court offense is going to be the first thing that I think takes shape in Milwaukee going into 2023.
How does this change things in late game situations? Because we know another thing that kind of snake bit the Bucks was just being able to close out games.
Sure.
With Damian Lillard, do you think you have your true closer now?
Oh, Damian Lillard's a true closer. I don't think there's any debate about it. I love Giannis. I'm wearing a Giannis hat right now. He is my favorite athlete of all time. I love him like I love my own children. However, he's not your typical closer, right? He's not going to hit the fadeaway jumper. He's done it. He did it at the Madison Square Garden in 2018. He's done it against teams like Boston and Miami, late dunk or free or layup, and he can do it. Not Damian Lillard, man, and that's not a knock on Giannis. Damian Lillard is right now. If you look at off the top of my head, closers in the NBA, who would you take over Damian Lillard? Maybe none. Maybe 1 or 2. LeBron's great, getting there towards the end of his career, but LeBron's had big moments in his career. Jimmy Butler is another guy who's proven, to be clutch late. This is very short, to answer your question. It's very, very short. I don't think it's going to be an issue. And I think Giannis is humble enough to be like, look, I don't care who closes. And don't forget about Chris Middleton. I know he's kind of like an afterthought. Chris Middleton's been very, very clutch, especially we talk about that 2021 team with Jrue Holiday. Chris Middleton was right there too, with Jrue Holiday being as clutch as possible against the Phoenix Suns to win that championship. But I think Giannis is like, hey, if you got it, it's yours. I'm gonna set the pick. You're open, nail it. If not, find Chris, find me. But I think Damian Lillard is going to be the guy, and none of them are going to care. Giannis is at that point in his career where, and you've heard him talk about it. He's gone in the media. I don't think he cares. I don't think he's a guy that demands the ball to be in his hands at the end of games. I don't think he demands the ball he doesn't have to score 30 points a game. He doesn't have to play 40 minutes a game. Giannis just wants to win. And the same can be said for Chris Middleton, who is probably nearing one of his last contracts as a Milwaukee Buck as he gets over the age of 30. And Giannis is entering towards the end of his prime. He's 28 years old. He's got a few more years left, but he's at the point where he don't care, man. He just wants to win, and he wants to win a championship. That's all he talks about. And you add a guy like Damian Lillard, if that means Damian Lillard is taking the final shots to win a game or to win a playoff series or win a championship, Giannis isn't going to care. And keep in mind, too, in that Miami series against the last playoffs, Giannis was trying to get the ball out of his hands in those late game situations. He knows he can't hit free throws in clutch situations. So adding Damian Lillard takes a lot of things off of Giannis, allows him to be a little bit more dominant, in the paint, which he was working with Hakeem Olajuwon just a couple weeks ago. So hopefully he has some new moves up his sleeve. But I think they're going to welcome Damian Lillard to take those final moments.
So let's talk the big picture with the Bucks. When it comes to Giannis, I know that they try to lock down an extension with him. They're trying to make sure he's a Buck for life. With Dame, we know the reports were that he wanted to go Miami. How much pressure is on this season if, let's say, they're not in the NBA Finals at the end of it?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Tons of pressure. You talk about championship or bust, and a lot of teams have that mentality. You got it. People say, hey, it's championship or bust. Not true for probably 90% of the league. It's true here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is a championship or bust. If the Bucks do not get to the NBA Finals, it will be considered a bust. Now, I think that Giannis has said some of the same things that he's been on the record of saying this past season, right? If we can't win, I don't want to be a loser the rest of my career, blah, blah, blah. He said the same things in 2020 up to that extension. And if you remember in 2020, they traded for Jrue Holiday. The Bucks, as a front office, as an organization, the ownership group here, we have a new partial owner in Jimmy Haslam. Name probably sounds familiar. He owns part of the Cleveland Browns. So he took over this spring, the right moves to build a team around Giannis Antetokounmpo to let his people know, hey, we're serious here. Malik Beasley led the league in three-point percentage off the bench last year. Of course, you add Damian Lillard, and you keep guys around, right? They re-signed Brook Lopez. They re-signed Chris Middleton. They have done everything, and I've tweeted this out on Twitter. They have done, or whatever it's called, X, I don't know what they call it these days. They have done everything as an organization to prove to Giannis we are serious about winning in Milwaukee. And yeah, it's Milwaukee. It's a small market. But they have done a terrific job as an organization to give him all the pieces he needs to win a championship. It is now, in pun intended, the ball is now in his court. He has to go out and be that number one guy, right? You talk about best players in the National Basketball Association. There's probably another player or two ahead of Giannis, and you could always make the argument that Giannis is better in the league. Like, he's got everything now. Now you have another top 75 player handling the ball, in your backcourt. You have Chris Middleton. You got Brook Lopez. Your bench is really good. Like, this roster is really, really good. And I know people are kind of sleeping on Milwaukee. It's usually what tends to happen with the big media, but Bobby Portis, who was just on Team USA, I know they had a little bit of a letdown with the World Games. Pat Connaughton, Marjon Beauchamp, the team's first-round draft pick a couple of years ago, he's expected to take a leap. So there really is no weakness on this roster. The only thing that would be in question is Adrian Griffin, the new head coach for the Milwaukee Bucks. He was the assistant in Toronto for so many years. He obviously played in the NBA. We don't know what to expect out of him. Now, he's got a pretty good starting job here in Milwaukee with Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Chris Middleton. So I think, don't overthink it if you're Adrian Griffin. But the expectations in Milwaukee right now are championship or bust. If they don't get there, obviously this year would be a letdown. But at some point, there has got to be another banner being raised at the Pfizer Forum there in downtown Milwaukee, especially with this core of players. Because in Milwaukee, prior to this, we've never seen anything like it other than 1971 when we had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robinson. Other than that, there's never been a pool of talent this good on this roster heading into this season.
Obviously Grayson Allen's gone. You have to replace his minutes. You have to replace Jrue Holiday's minutes, which you're obviously doing with Damian Lillard already. But who takes the biggest step up? Who is like the true like backup guard? I know that a lot of Bucks fans have said that position seems a little bit thin.
You know, Ty Washington was a guy they picked up in the offseason. I think he was last in Oklahoma City. He's a guy that I think they could plug in and hope, you know, that he could provide that spark as a younger player. But again, inexperienced, unproven, right? And this is a veteran-led group, a veteran-led team. So my anticipation, my wants, my wishes, Cameron Payne, who can facilitate, create, shoot. You know, he's a terrific guy off the bench.
Damian Lillard getting traded, I think, opens the door for James Harden to get his trade out of Philadelphia. So 76ers are expected to take a hit probably here in the next couple months. The Celtics, they did obviously lose Marcus Smart, bring in Kristaps Porzingis. He's dealing with some injuries right now going into the season. We'll see if he gets healthy at any point this year. But looking around the rest of the Eastern Conference, the biggest plus about this Damian Lillard trade to me is that he doesn't go to Miami. So that's one less contender off the board, you know, to be able to steal from your competition and add to your own roster. Now it seems like it's pretty much, to me, at least looking at on the onset here, Celtics Bucks,
sure.
Eastern Conference Finals. How do you like how the Bucks stack up in that matchup? What do you think are going to be the biggest issues for you in that one? For me, it's the guard play. Going back to it, I mean, the Celtics get a rollout still, Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon, two talented guards. I think that's going to be an issue for even Dame, you know, inserting Dame into this lineup.
Well, there is some breaking news. I don't know if you want me to break it on the podcast, but Jrue Holiday is headed to Boston. So, I mean, Jrue Holiday is going to Boston.
I knew they were the front runners, but I didn't know that was going to break today. So, I mean, you add in Brogdon, you add in Holiday into this mix, then certainly that guard rotation in Boston is lethal.
So they shipped out Malcolm Brogdon. So Brogdon and Williams go to Portland for Jrue Holiday and a couple of first-round picks. I think they had one of Golden State's first-round pick and then one of their own. So Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, 2 first-round draft picks for Jrue Holiday. But I think it's a terrific move for Boston. I think Jrue Holiday, I've said it on Twitter, said it on air, he's one of my favorite players I've ever watched. He's the best, in my opinion, he's the best two-way player in the NBA. And that's saying a lot because there's some really talented players throughout the association on defense and offense. Jrue Holiday just is that dude. And it's going to be Boston and Milwaukee, I think, at the end of it, if both teams can stay healthy. I think the biggest question for Boston and Milwaukee isn't talent, isn't defense, isn't offense. You know, Tatum's going to get his. Brown's going to get his. I love Jaylen Brown, such a phenomenal player. And you know, Giannis and Damian Lillard are going to get theirs. The biggest thing for both those teams, can Kristaps Porzingis stay healthy? Can Chris Middleton in Milwaukee stay healthy? Right? We haven't seen Chris Middleton healthy in 2 seasons, right? He's had another knee operation to clean up some stuff this year. He's reportedly in the best shape. Everybody's always in the best shape of their lives in the offseason. So he's in great shape, you know, coming into this offseason. He says his knee is good to go. Can Giannis stay healthy, right? The wrist last year, the knee has always been a little bit of an issue from him. He takes a ton of beating all year long. He plays a lot of games, a lot of minutes. So I think health will be the determining factor between those 2 teams. But man, Jrue Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Tatum, I mean, phenomenal big 3. If you put up both these big 3s together, and I don't think it's going to be Miami. I think Miami had a phenomenal run last year. The Bucks, ran out of gas. They were not healthy. Boston just couldn't hit shots. You know, I think it's going to come down to Boston and Milwaukee. A Damian Lillard, Jrue Holiday matchup, man. Are you kidding me? Put that on pay-per-view. Put that on freaking pay-per-view. That's incredible. I hate as a Bucks fan that Jrue Holiday is going there because I know, and most Bucks fans know, when we say we hate that move because we know what Jrue Holiday can do. We know what he can provide on defense. He's a hound, man, and he can guard 1 through 5, right? He used to match up with Giannis in practice. Like, he would guard Giannis at practice. So he's as tough as they come. I love Jrue Holiday in Boston. I don't love it as a Bucks fan, but as a basketball fan, that's a fantastic move from them. Even if they lose Robert Williams, they're off their defensive anchor, right? I was hoping that as a Bucks fan, Al Horford was gone because he torments the Bucks for whatever reason. Every time we play Al Horford, he shoots like 50% from deep. So, Boston does lose a little bit on the defensive end, but so did Milwaukee when they lost Jrue Holiday for Damian Lillard. And I think the NBA is kind of transitioning a little bit to what we've seen with the NFL over the last 5 years. Offense. But if Jrue Holiday is your third option, Derek White's still there, another great two-way player. It's a great move for Boston. I think it's going to be a terrific matchup. No way it goes less than 7 because I just can't imagine, either one of those teams giving in before 7 games. So I just think it's going to be a terrific matchup. To me, the scale always tips over to who's the best player on the court, right? And who's going to be the best player. Is it Tatum or is it Giannis, right? In that matchup, in that series. And for me, it could go either way because we've seen Tatum drop 40. We've also seen Tatum go 3 for 40, right? Like, but we've also seen it with Giannis too. And to be fair, we've also seen it with Giannis. The only difference between those two players is one has won a championship, one has not, but what does this Bucks team look like? Again, this is going to be a different look Bucks team, right? Adrian Griffin is going to be different than Coach Bud, right? They're two different coaches, two different philosophies. Coach Bud was all about defense, getting around, playing, his role and playing guys limited minutes, right? Giannis barely played over 30 minutes. What does Adrian Griffin do? What kind of offensive sets does he run? Terry Stotts now is in Milwaukee, right? So from Portland to Milwaukee, Terry Stotts, Damian Lillard absolutely loved Terry Stotts at his time in Portland. So what kind of offense does Terry Stotts run? I'm sure he's probably doing cartwheels now that he's got Damian Lillard back to pair with Giannis. But those two teams match up terrifically. I think the biggest question is when you look at those two teams, you're a Bucks fan, you say, guard Giannis on Boston. That would be my question. Does KP do it on Boston if he's healthy? But I think Giannis probably has his way. Al Horford has done well, but I think Giannis is just too big, too quick for a guy like Al Horford. And Al Horford, can he stay healthy too? But again, if you're a Boston fan, you go, okay, but Damian Lillard, Jrue Holiday had his way in 2018 against Damian Lillard. That was a few years ago, but Damian Lillard had some tough times against Jrue Holiday. So it's a terrific move for Boston. Both these teams know that they're in their window. And it's awesome to see teams, organizations, front offices, general managers be like, yeah, this is our time. Let's go out and make a move to push us over the edge. And Boston did that. You're losing a guy like Malcolm Brogdon and Robert Williams probably isn't popular among the fan base. I know Robert Williams was a big, fan favorite there in Boston. I have a few Boston friends who absolutely loved him. And what he did matchup wise was be able to keep guys like Brook Lopez on the court because you couldn't take Brook Lopez off the court if you had Robert Williams. So that a matchup, playing chess versus checkers with matchups with Robert Williams and Malcolm Brogdon again. A Milwaukee tie. There's some ties here to these two franchises, and he's a leader. He's a guy that can get a bucket. So I know losing him probably isn't ideal, but when you can get a guy like Jrue Holiday, and I said it earlier, in my opinion, best two-way player in the NBA. He's as great as he is on the court too. He's just a fantastic human off the court. I absolutely hated losing him. I was excited about Damian Lillard. You asked me at the beginning of the show. I was excited about getting Damian Lillard. A part of my heart was sad because Jrue Holiday is just so good, man. And every night you know what you're going to get out of Jrue Holiday. Even if he doesn't shoot well, he's going to hound whoever he's guarding for 40 minutes. And that's exactly what he did. And that's a big loss for Milwaukee. Obviously, adding Damian Lillard's huge. But, man, getting Jrue Holiday in Boston, terrific addition by that organization. These two franchises, man, they know what they're doing. It's an arms race between those two teams, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be an awesome season. I can't wait for the start.
Ah, man, you're shaking my whole world here to know that two players from the 2021-2022 season for the Celtics that were considered frontrunners for Defensive Player of the Year and Marcus Smart and Robert Williams are now gone is kind of like
Marcus Smart. Yeah,
it's kind of like a devastating thing to think about, but at the same time, just Boston fan perspective here with Robert Williams' injury history, I understand that like it's a risk every season you go into it with Robert Williams. So to get a guy, as you mentioned, who's so consistent in Jrue Holiday, if that trade's there to be made, you have to make it. You just hope that some other guys are going to step up because obviously you mentioned Al Horford there, but Al Horford's like 50. So, the big man rotations are kind of seeming thin there, at least on the onset. Maybe they could find someone else, but lose Robert Williams, that's wow, devastating to me. But we'll see. I'm sure I'll love Jrue Holiday. It's just going to take some time because now I got to process it and rethink my mind about how this Boston Celtics season is going to be.
And I think it's good for Boston and Milwaukee because I think these are the two best teams before the Damian Lillard and before the Jrue Holiday trade, right? I think if you reset these rosters, right, and no moves are made this offseason, I still think Boston and Milwaukee, I know Miami had their run last year. I think they got it. I think they just played out of their minds, right? Completely out of their mind. Like
we're not going to see Caleb Martin going for 30, right. Gabe Vincent going for 30. He's gone anymore. Max Strauss is gone.
Yeah. Like mattered to me that their run was last year. To me, it was always Boston and Milwaukee, two teams that play team defense, two teams that have superstars, proven superstars, right? Like, and now you kind of do a little bit of switching around. And if you're a Boston fan, man, you're listening to this podcast, I treat Jrue Holiday well, please. I love Jrue Holiday and just a terrific dude, a awesome basketball player. he's going to be missed in Milwaukee. And I think that as great as Damian Lillard is, and he is going to be great, he's going to provide something that we haven't seen here in Milwaukee. And I love Jrue Holiday. Just got done saying that. Jrue Holiday wasn't dropping 32.1 points per game. His true shooting percentage was not 65% like Damian Lillard. So it's going to be a different outlook in Milwaukee as far as the point guard position. But I'll tell you what, if it matches up between Milwaukee and Boston, I do not like looking across the court and seeing Jrue Holiday on defense, because I know what he brings, and it's nothing pretty for the opposing team.
Brandon, again, thanks for joining us, man. Like, plug the socials, plug where we can find you, all that good stuff.
Man, I appreciate you always having me on. It's always a good time to talk sports with you. We got some hope on both of our teams, right? Milwaukee with Damian Lillard, Boston with Jrue Holiday. I don't know what they're doing in Philly or Miami, but I'm happy Jrue Holiday is not on either one of those teams. But as always, man, thank you for including me in this show. It's always a pleasure to be on here. You can follow me on Twitter at Brandon_Sneide, and the morning sports anchor on 620 WTMJ, the home of the Bucks. So I'll actually be doing some Bucks media day coverage coming up here. So we'll get our first look at Damian Lillard. He actually arrived in the city yesterday, got a roaring ovation from, I don't know, probably 10,000 fans that were down at the Pfizer Forum. All he did was walk into the arena, and they were out there camped out for hours. So the excitement in Milwaukee is definitely building. I'm sure the excitement in Boston is doing the same, but I appreciate you. Thank you.
Brandon Sneide, go ahead and check him out. Check out all our content by hitting that subscribe button, that like button, commenting below your thoughts on Jrue Holiday, Boston, Dame Lillard to Milwaukee. Like to hear what you're thinking about it. Stay safe, happy, and healthy. From Juju, we'll see you next time.